This is Mr. Martin. This is the video lesson for section 4.7 for Geometry Advanced. We're going to be looking at another type of proof. We've done two types of proofs already. We've done paragraph proofs and we've done two-column proofs. And now we're going to look at a third type of proof, which is similar to a two-column proof, except the layout is a bit different. So we're going to complete a flow proof for each example. And we're going to do it just a little bit different than the book. Not much different, just how we state our reasons. And let's take a look at the first example. So as always, I'm going to go ahead and mark my given information and see what I've got. So I've got WZ congruent to, or YZ congruent to WZ, and VZ is congruent to XZ. And I want to get these two triangles congruent. And I can see right away that I'm going to have these vertical angles, and that I'll be able to prove that these triangles are congruent by side angle side. So the way I'm going to do this now is I'm going to list off my given, but I'm going to do it in these little boxes. So I've got segment YZ congruent to segment WZ. Okay, I'm going to put that in a box. And I'm going to put a little number 1 by this. And we'll go ahead and fill that in later. I'll show you what that's going to be for. And then I'm going to put my other given over here, VZ, congruent to XZ. And that's also going to get a number 1. Maybe you can see why that's going to work as well. And I'm going to put one more box. Again, you don't have to do this, but I like to do it just because it saves time and I don't have to worry about corresponding order. So I'm going to put a 1 and a 2. Really, you can put any numbers that you want in there. And I'm going to put that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And we know that because they're vertical angles. And I'm going to put a little 2 by this. And then these three pieces of information here, they are going to come together for a conclusion, and our conclusion is that triangle YZW is congruent to triangle WZX. And then this is going to get a number 3. So now, wherever you have room, we're going to fill in what these 1, 2s, and 3s are. So for number 1, this is going to be our reasons now. So for 1, the reason is simply that these are given. Alright, so any box that would have a number 1 by it would be given. And then the number 2, you should know the reason for this. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 because vertical angles are congruent. And then we had one more number, number 3, and the reason that these triangles were congruent now we can see in our picture is by side angle side. And we don't really have to put any numbers of steps because there aren't really any steps. So you can see that all of these flow, these 3 reasons here flow to make the triangles congruent. And once you do a bunch of examples, you'll kind of get the hang of it. So, as always, if you have questions, make sure that you pause the video and write down your questions, or just ask me your questions if you happen to be watching in class. Alright, so let's move on to number 2. I know that LP is congruent to NP. And then I've got these perpendiculars. I know that in order to get congruency from the perpendiculars, I'm going to need right angles first. And again, we want to prove those triangles congruent, and I'm going to have that reflexive side there. So let's go ahead and put down my given information, segment LP congruent to segment NP. And we'll give that a number 1 because that's going to be our given. That'll be given when we fill in our reasons. And we've got segment MP perpendicular to segment LN. And I know that from perpendicular I get right angles. So I'm going to get that angle MPL and angle MPN are right angles. So that flows from the fact that we have perpendicular. So that was a given. That's a number 1. We'll fill that in again later. And this is going to have a different reason, which I'm going to label number 2. And then once we know that they're right angles, we know that they are going to be congruent. So I know that angle MPL is going to be congruent to angle MPN, and that'll be a different reason for us. So now we've got 3 different reasons. And we also can see that I have MP is congruent to itself. So I've got MP congruent to MP. So that's going to be a 4th reason. And then I have a pair of, I'm just going to highlight these. I have a pair of sides here. I have a pair of angles here. And I have another pair of sides here. Don't forget your segment symbols here. And really, I can see in my picture now that I have side angle side, which is going to be enough to prove. So these 3 reasons here are going to flow right to triangle MLP congruent to triangle MNP. And that will be reason 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in our reasons. I got 1, that was all given information. And then number 2, that was definition of perpendicular. And then number 3 was because all right angles are congruent. These are right angles, therefore they're congruent. So all right angles are congruent. And then number 4 over here was my reflexive property. Reflexive property, don't forget the word property. And then number 5 is by side angle side. So again, very similar to a 2-column proof, except we're going to write it in this flow so you can really see where everything comes from, especially this middle line here. The perpendicular gives us the right angles, which gives us that the right angles are congruent. And then we've got our 3 pairs of congruencies coming together to make the triangles congruent. Alright, let's take a look at one more example. Again, pause anytime you need to write down or ask questions. So here we've got angle CBD congruent to ABD. And we have angle C congruent to angle A. And somehow we want to get CD and AD. So what we did in the last lesson was we were proving triangles congruent, and then we could get corresponding parts congruent. And I can see I'm going to have the reflexive side there, and then I could prove the triangles congruent by angle, angle, side. So let's take a look at this. Let's get our given information in some boxes. I've got angle CBD is congruent to angle ABD. Alright, and we'll give that reason 1. And I've got angle C is congruent to angle A. That's going to get a 1 also. And then we talked already about BD being reflexive, and these triangles just fold one over onto the other. There's no rotation involved, so we know it's going to be BD congruent to BD. Again, if you have a question about that corresponding order, make sure that you ask. And this is going to be a different reason, which we'll call 2. And if you wanted to go ahead and make your list of reasons as you go, that's fine. I just like to do it at the end so I know where I have room after my proof. So now I can see I have a pair of angles here, another pair of angles here, and a pair of sides here. And I can see from my picture that it's going to be angle, angle, side. So these 3 are going to come together to make triangle CBD congruent to triangle ABD. Again, make sure you name those triangles in the corresponding order. Alright, this will be reason 3. And once I get these triangles congruent, I have 3 pair of parts already congruent. That means that the other 3 pair of parts now are also going to be congruent since the triangles are congruent. And CD and AD are another pair of those corresponding parts, so they will be congruent as well. So that's step 4. So now to make our list of reasons, number 1 was given. Number 2, that was our reflexive property again. And number 3 was angle, angle, side. And then number 4, since the triangles are congruent, the corresponding parts are congruent. That's CP, CT, C. And there you have your flow proof. So go ahead and work on the other 4 examples, and I'll have solutions for those in class. And again, if you have any questions, make sure that you ask as you go. We'll see you next time.